Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hi everybody, welcome to the Health Begins with Mom podcast. This is Dorit Palvanov, your host. Just a quick reminder, all the show notes of today's episode can be found over at my website, healthbeginswithmom.com/EP-29. Here's a phenomenon I see repeating again and again with the women I work with. There is this almost unconscious and complete codependency between women and their healthcare providers. We believe these healthcare providers are gods as if they are not humans, and we outsource our well-being and health to them willingly, almost entirely. Now, I say this because if you want to thrive as a woman, you have to take back control of your own health, whether it is by educating yourself, consulting various practitioners across the board, whether through conventional or alternative medicine. Do whatever you need to do in order to see yourself as an active player fighting in the arena for your health. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be consulting with a doctor if you feel needed. What I am saying is that you need to understand that no one can heal you other than you. No one will show or lead you to better health if you are not willing to do the work. And one thing that doctors do routinely in a conventional setting is to request lab tests, and many women complain that after these tests return normal, they are left in a painful situation. Physically, you still don't feel good, but your lab tests don't show anything abnormal. What do you do? One thing I recommend to women is to try various at-home lab testing to see if there is anything they can discover that the regular laboratory couldn't pick up. I think this is a great way to complement the labs that your doctor ordered and involve your healthcare practitioner in figuring out the root causes of your health challenges. Today on the show, I'm interviewing Dr. Marra Francis, who is the medical director for an at-home lab testing company called EverlyWells. Marra is a board-certified OB/GYN practicing since 2003. In her clinical practice, Marra's focus is on women who are high risk for cancer, either because of genetic mutations or family history. And the goal is to try and reduce their risk of developing cancer in the future. Marra lives in Texas with her husband. There's 6 kids and 2 dogs. And here's a little information about the company. Founded in 2015 by CEO Julia Cheek, EverlyWell is the next generation health testing platform that provides at-home lab testing kits with beautifully redesigned results. This is the only company offering a suite of regulatory compliant physician-mediated lab tests that can be ordered and collected by consumers without leaving their home. With the exception of STD testing, EverlyWell's tests provide personalized information and education to the consumer. They are not intended to diagnose any disease or condition or to substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Guys, knowledge is always power. Knowing more about your body gives you the power to make changes to better your own health. All right, now without further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Marra Francis. Hi, Marra. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
All right, so this podcast is for moms, and you have 6 kids. I can't even believe that.
I do.
What are you loving about being a mother right now?
Oh, right now? Let's see. Right now is a really busy time in our life. I'm loving watching all of our kids excel in school and sports. We're entering the end of the second grading period, and all the kids are doing great. So I'm very happy about that. But we still have 5 in the house, so it's a very, very busy household.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine that. I have 3 and it's it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I'd love to say it gets easier. It just gets different as they get older.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. All right, so today we're talking about at-home lab testing. So before we get into more details about that, can you please tell us what's the story behind EverlyWell and how did it start?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So EverlyWell was started in 2015 by our CEO and founder, Julia Cheek. And she started it after she had issues getting answers to some health questions she was having, and her lab experience was actually terrible. And so she founded EverlyWell to try and fix that problem. And now you have this amazing company today.
That's amazing. Yeah. So why would someone choose to pay for a home lab test? Why isn't a lab test ordered by our doctor is good enough?
It's not that it's not good enough. It's just that, I am a doctor, as I think you know, and I still see patients. The ability for me to order lab tests for you and make sure that your insurance covers them has to do with the symptoms you come in with, the physical findings that you may or may not have, making sure that all the coding is correct. And then even if we do all of that, some insurance plans have exclusions. And so there may still be some lab testing that you need, but your insurance doesn't cover it. You don't know that, and I don't know that until you get a bill in the mail. We're not meant to replace lab testing from doctors. I always tell people I look at us as sort of I don't feel bad enough that I need to be seeing my doctor for this, but I don't feel great, and I'd really like to know if there's something going on that I should take the effort to make an appointment to go see my doctor. So I like to look at us as a bridge between being perfectly healthy, maybe not feeling perfectly great, but not feeling bad enough that you're sure you want to take off work, make an appointment, see the doctor, and then go get the labs done through the doctor.
And in terms of accuracy, how is EverlyWell doing in terms of blood samples? Like, how does that work?
So all of our labs are CLIA certified, which is exactly what all of the labs I send my patients to as a doctor. They're all CLIA certified. They're the highest standard. All of our tests done with home collection methods have been validated against traditional collection methods, and the results are congruent. So they're the same whether you do a finger stick or someone goes and draws a total vial of blood.
Okay, and in my work with women and girls, I often see little problems, quote unquote, creeping up that we don't always know how to connect with bigger problems that might creep up later in life. And I know that in your practice, your main focus is on women who are high risk for cancer, either because of a genetic mutation or family history. And I know that your goal is to try and reduce their risk of developing cancer in the future. So can you give some examples of these little problems that you see causing bigger health challenges in the future? And how can at-home lab testing help me as a woman experiencing these symptoms hinder them before it's too late?
So all of the testing through EverlyWell is not, we have one exception, but all of our panels are not designed to diagnose you, right? So a diagnosis is something that comes from visiting with your healthcare provider and your physical exam, your findings, your lab tests, your x-rays, whatever it may be. You know, even if you require surgery, then you come to a diagnosis. At EverlyWell, we're really focused on wellness. And so all of our lab tests are really designed to let you know if there are subtle changes going on in your body that you may be able to fix either with diet or physical activity or, better sleeping habits. So it's stuff that you can do at home. Now, we do have an exception, and that is our sexual health test that will diagnose you with a sexually transmitted disease. However, that particular panel is handled a little bit differently. We have a physicians network that if someone tests positive, in addition to getting their results through EverlyWell, they get a phone call from one of the doctors in our network who will either get them in with a local physician to be seen and treated, or in some cases start their treatment. We do have some tests, especially for women, like thyroid panel and hormone panel. Obviously, those tests are really designed. If you've done everything that you should be doing to kind of maintain a healthy lifestyle, you're still not feeling right, or you're still having irregular periods, you can look to see if you're starting to get a hormone imbalance, so then you can know to get to the doctor to get a diagnosis and get treated for that. You can look to see if you're starting to get a thyroid imbalance, so that you can know to go see your doctor and make an appointment to get a diagnosis and treatment for that.
And can you talk a little bit about the difference between EverlyWell and the other at-home lab testing companies out there?
Sure. So there are a lot of different at-home lab testing companies. A lot of them say that they're at home, but what they do is they actually generate a lab order, and then you go to a lab draw station. So those particular companies just sort of bypass requiring a doctor visit to get the labs, but you still actually have to go to a lab draw station. There are some other companies that do at-home testing. You know, a lot of the markers that we test for are the same. At EverlyWell, we've tried to create both single marker tests and panel tests that we think are very useful for the consumer. So someone may just want to check to see if their vitamin D level has increased after their healthcare provider told them, hey, I really want you to take vitamin D every day because you're at the age where we're going to start to see some changes in your bones, and vitamin D can help prevent that. And rather than going back to the physician to say, hey, did my 3 months of vitamin D actually make a difference? You could go on our website and you could just order a vitamin D test and see for yourself if you've made a difference. So we really try to make our tests and our panels fill a need for our customers. We're constantly changing our panels, and we're looking to add new tests based on customer feedback. And so, my job is to make sure that everything EverlyWell currently offers or will be offering in the future is useful. Nobody wants to spend money on something and then not get anything useful out of it. I do remind people that a normal test is very useful. If you run a panel and everything comes back normal, that's great. That means you're doing everything you need to do to keep yourself healthy in that arena. I think, knowing that is just as useful as knowing that maybe something isn't completely, normal.
So let's go deeper a little bit in terms of the testing that your company offers. Can you talk a little bit about the tests that are available for women and also men? Because some of us are in relationships with men.
Yes.
And in which cases do you recommend, using each?
So basically, we have got 3 tests that are really geared towards men, and we have 4 tests that are really geared towards women. So the 3 tests that are typically geared towards men are our testosterone test, our men's health test, and then our STD or sexually transmitted disease test specifically for men. For women, we have our women's STD test specifically tailored to women. We have our women's health and fertility. We have our breast milk DHA test, and we have a new test that launched called Ovarian Reserve. And so I can go into as much detail as you want about those 7 tests.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So for men's test, the testosterone test is just looking at a free testosterone level. And that's really great for men who maybe have been put on supplementation by their doctor, or maybe they're noticing a change in their weight and they want to know, hey, could this be a change in my testosterone as I'm aging so that I know to go see a doctor? So that's just a single marker test. Our men's health test includes testosterone, DHEA, estradiol, and cortisol. So all 4 of those hormones and the levels that they are can interplay with the men's health and metabolism, energy level, libido, response to exercise. So that's a more comprehensive test. Our males' sexual transmitted disease or sexual health test measures gonorrhea, syphilis, hepatitis C, HIV, herpes type 2, chlamydia, and trichomonas. And so that's a combination of both a blood spot as well as a urine sample to look for all of those different sexually transmitted infections. Our women's sexual health test is exactly the same. It's just a different collection, which is why it's in a different kit. It's a blood spot and it's a vaginal swab. Our women's health and fertility is a lot like our men's health. It looks at a whole bunch of different hormones that can be affecting energy, metabolism, sexual health, sleep, cold intolerance, hair loss, a whole bunch of different things, as well as, any of these imbalances may interfere with the ability to get pregnant. And those hormones that we look in that panel are estradiol, progesterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, DHEA, total testosterone. We check cortisol 4 times a day in that panel. We look at thyroid stimulating hormone, free T3, free T4, and thyroid peroxidase antibodies. Our last 2 women's health tests include our breast milk DHA test. This test is actually a breast milk sample that is sent in, and we can measure the amount of DHA in breast milk. Now, it's matched up against a worldwide average. The typical American diet has most of our DHA deficient compared to other countries worldwide that tend to eat more fresh fish. So for women who are exclusively breastfeeding, this is a great way for them to know if they need to increase DHA in their diet, so they can in turn increase the DHA in the breast milk. And that is if they're exclusively breastfeeding, that's the only source of DHA that their baby is getting. So again, it's a marker to look at. How is the diet? Obviously, the breastfeeding mom is not the only one eating that diet. Other people in that house are eating that diet. So if they're low on DHA, chances are so is everybody else in the house. So again, this is just a test to make sure that we've got enough DHA so that everyone in our family with the diet that we're eating or feeding our family is getting enough DHA. And then the last test is the ovarian reserve test. And that test is a single marker test. It is a day 3 FSH level. A day 3 FSH level is really important because if FSH is elevated on day 3, it typically means that the body is having to work very, very, very hard to ovulate. And that can be an indication that the woman may be entering an early menopause. That can be an indication that she may have poor egg quality. It takes a lot more stimulus to get an egg to mature and release. That's why your FSH levels are higher on day 3. Or it could tell a woman that her FSH levels on day 3 are perfectly normal for her age. And then she could say, you know what? I am going to wait another year before I try to have a baby. So it can help them sort of plan their fertility and make sure that they're not waiting too long and then end up being, the significant number of women later in life who have trouble getting pregnant.
Right. So how is this test different than women's health and fertility test?
So the women's health and fertility is really for any woman of any age, not just women looking to see how their fertility is, right? It's for women who may be having irregular menses and they want to understand, do I have a hormonal imbalance that's causing me to have an irregular menstrual cycle? It may be for women who are experiencing abnormal hair growth on their arms or their face or their chest, and they want to see, is there a hormone imbalance? And if so, what is it, so that they know, okay, I've identified a problem. Let me get to my doctor and let me get this treated before it becomes a bigger problem. The women's health and fertility really is for women of any age and can be taken for a number of reasons. The ovarian reserve test strictly looks at day 3 FSH, and all it can tell you is your egg quality matched to other women your age? That's it. It can't tell you why you might be having irregular menses. It can't tell you why you might be having abnormal hair growth. It can't tell you why your hair might be falling out. It can't tell you anything. And it also can't tell you necessarily whether or not you're going to get pregnant, right? Because fertility has a lot to do, not just with the woman, but with the partner. It has to do with whether or not there's been any sexual transmitted infections in your history. It has to do with sperm count, sperm quality. All the ovarian reserve test tells you is if your egg quality and your ovarian reserve is matched to other women your age.
I see. And I'm just curious, is there is any of the tests that are specifically for men, can men use them to see if there is a fertility issue?
At this time, the only test that would really give a fertility indication would be our testosterone test, which obviously men who have lower testosterone have impaired sperm development. But it doesn't actually tell you what your sperm count is, whether your sperm are formed normally, swimming normally. It doesn't tell you any of that.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the steps that people should be aware of from ordering online to getting the results.
Okay. So you would actually go to our website. You would be able to choose a test to look at. Each one of our test panels, and I'll just pull down men's testosterone right now. Each one of our test panels has typically 5 tabs. It has details about the test, so it tells you what the test is, and then it says who should take this test. So it will talk about who might be a good candidate for this test based on symptoms that people may be experiencing. It then goes into a detailed marker evaluation, so you know exactly what biomarkers are being tested. It goes into potential symptoms. So what are potential symptoms that people may experience if they have an abnormal testosterone result, either too low or too high? It has links to other articles so you could learn more about testosterone. Then it has frequently asked questions, not only about the test, but about the ordering process. Once a customer has decided which test they would like to choose, all they have to do is order the test. It will take them to the checkout. In the checkout, you have to put in a certain amount of information. That's how we begin to create your account. And then you go to the step where you actually pay for the test. And then once that is done, we ship the test directly to you. The test comes to you. It has detailed instructions. Sometimes it will tell you what time you should do your collection. Sometimes it tells you how often you need to do your collection. So some of our tests, you actually do collecting samples 4 times in a single day. Sometimes we want you to do it first thing in the morning. Sometimes you need to do it at a certain time of your menstrual cycle. So all those instructions are very, very clearly indicated in each of the kits, and everything you need to collect your sample is in each of the kits. So you would collect your sample, you would actually put it in a biohazard bag, and then you would put it back in the prepaid shipping container, and you can drop it off at any mailbox, any post office. You could drop it off in your mailbox and your mail carrier can just pick it up. It goes directly to our lab. And then usually within 5 days of receiving your sample, your results are ready to be viewed on your platform, which is created when you create your account.
Awesome. I love the simplicity. I love that. So I wanted to share something with you. Years ago, as I was trying to figure out my own root causes to some of the symptoms that I had, I've invested almost $400 in an at-home lab test similar to this, and I was so excited to see the results. However, I was disappointed to see that the results were so confusing, and in order for me to interpret them, I had to invest more money for an in-house practitioner to decode them for me. So how is EverlyWell approach different?
So we actually provide every customer with 2 sets of results. The result that you see when you log into your platform is color-coded, and everything is very easily explained. So sometimes you may actually have a graph, and it will show you where your marker is on the graph, and the graph is clearly labeled, with the normal range, so you can visualize, is my level in the normal range? Is it elevated, or is it lower than expected? And so you can see that it's all clearly labeled. You can then actually click on your specific result as well, and it will take you to a more detailed explanation of what that biomarker is, what it means, like what the normal ranges are, what it could mean if the level is low, what it could mean if the level is normal, what it could mean if the level is elevated. So all of that is very clearly explained. Again, we always have links for more information for people who would like to see other sources discussing the particular biomarker that was tested. We have a second set of results called a PDF. This is what someone like me in my medical practice sees from a commercial lab. It's strictly all of the markers that were tested, the customer's specific result, and then the normal ranges next to it. So a lot of times when people have an abnormal result and we encourage them to discuss this with their healthcare provider is not going to be used to seeing the color-coded and the graphic results the way that we have them set up for our customers. But you can print off that PDF and bring it in, and it'll look like any result that you got from a LabCorp or a Quest or a Lab One station or any of those. So your doctor will be very familiar with seeing your results in that format. So we give our results 2 ways. The other thing that I think makes EverlyWell different, obviously with our sexually transmitted disease test, the physician call that is made to you should you be positive for something, all of that's included in your cost. There's no additional cost for our physician network contacting you to discuss your results. I am always available through customer service, and I answer customer questions about their results constantly. Obviously, we don't prescribe, we don't diagnose, but I can explain the results, hopefully in a way that makes them understand better what their results may mean, what they should consider to do next, when it's really time for them to go see their healthcare provider. And then we have an entire customer support team. They're also able to answer questions about results. Obviously, anything that they're not able to answer gets directed directly towards me. And then lastly, we have a closed Facebook group. And so I always think that really a sense of community, especially for people who are trying to make lifestyle changes, is huge. And our closed Facebook group is only for people who have done EverlyWell tests. Someone who may have done a food sensitivity test and has an elevated reaction to, let's say soy, they may get on our group and they may say, hey, I got my food results back and I'm highly sensitive to soy. Can people tell me all the hidden sources of soy in our diet so I can make sure that I eliminate all my sources? And people will say, oh, I had a soy reactivity too. Here's what I found. Here's great substitutes. Here's things to avoid. And so that sort of sense of community and learning from each other and learning from people who may have had similar results, I think is fantastic. I monitor that Facebook page. I make sure that the information that is being disseminated is factual and accurate so that people aren't getting misguided information from other people.
Yeah, that definitely is a bonus. So I know that EverlyWell is based in Austin, Texas.
It is.
So I wanted to know, what about people who don't live in the States? How accurate would their results be, taking into consideration longer shipping time? Or is it even available?
It is. So we are actually, our company is headquartered in Austin. Our partner labs are actually throughout the country. We have sought out the highest quality labs, and the same lab doesn't necessarily do all of our tests. So one lab that may be excellent at food sensitivity does all of our food sensitivity testing, whereas another lab that is really excellent at hormones does all of our hormone testing. So we've made sure that the labs that do our testing really are the best, and it didn't matter where in the country. That's the other nice thing about doing at-home testing, because everything is sent directly to the lab through the mail. The mail goes everywhere. And so you don't have to worry about living in the state where the lab or the company is. There are 4 states that have state laws that prohibit direct-to-consumer testing or any lab testing unless the lab that is doing the testing is located in their state. And so those 4 states are New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Delaware. I hope I didn't say that wrong. Yeah, Delaware. And so those 4 states, actually at this time, we can't ship kits to anyone in those 4 states. Now, the laws are changing and we're constantly monitoring them. And we're trying to make sure that as soon as EverlyWell is able to be available to customers in those states, we make sure we let them know.
And how about people who are overseas? Like, for example, someone from Australia or Canada, is it available to them?
At this time, no, we are not internationally available.
Oh, I see. Okay. And I also know that unfortunately at this time, there are no tests available for anyone. Yes,
go ahead. I made a mistake and I need to correct it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I apologize. It's New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Maryland.
Maryland.
I apologize. It's Maryland, not Delaware. So I apologize for that mistake.
Okay, that's okay. So I was just saying that at this time that the tests are also not available for kids, so anyone under the age of 18. And I remember you were talking about something about a test that that either the mom or the dad or maybe both can take in order to help the entire family find what's lurking in either their home or the diet. I think you mentioned the heavy metals test. Can you talk
Yes.
about that?
Yes, absolutely. So the heavy metals test is probably one of my favorite tests that we offer. I think it's pretty well known that there's toxins in our environment, there's toxins in our food, there's toxins in our water potentially. And if you are at the point where your doctor is looking for a heavy metal problem, right? Whether it's arsenic or whether it's bromine or selenium, if you're at the point where they're actually looking for that, you're already symptomatic, right? It means that the level of that toxin has gotten high enough in your body that you've become ill and you're exhibiting symptoms that leads your provider to know, hey, I've got to look for a toxicity from some environmental heavy metal. You can do a heavy metals test and you can see whether or not you might be being exposed at low levels to certain toxins in your home, certain toxins in your environment, certain toxins in your food that you might be buying. I think that this is the greatest test for families, right? You're right. We can't do testing under anyone under 18. As I'm sure you can understand, it would be extremely hard for us to verify, especially in a separated or a divorce situation, that both custodial parents are consenting to testing being done on a minor child when it's all done over the internet. That would be very difficult, and it's just too hard at this time to do. But we really want to offer some of our testing to kids, and so we're constantly trying to figure out ways that we can offer testing in a very safe way and not infringe upon parental rights. So hopefully in the future we're gonna be able to do that. But back to the heavy metals. Just because we can't test your kids live in the same home as you. So if you and your partner did a heavy metals test and you both came back showing elevated levels of bromine, well, now you know you've got to go looking for what is the source of bromine in our home, in our food, in our water, because if we're elevated, obviously if our kids are eating the same diet and drinking the same water, so are our children. And it's very interesting. I live in Texas, and I've had a couple of customers from Texas have elevated bromine levels. And through the research that I've done to help them understand why they may be experiencing this, it turns out that a lot of our local farmland is elevated in bromine, in particular our strawberry farmland. And so if you're buying local fresh strawberries in Texas, chances are you might be getting a source of bromine in your diet. So I just think that our heavy metals test is a fantastic test to look to see, is there anything that may potentially cause problems down the road for you or anyone in your home, so that you can do a little investigation and you can make changes to lower those levels.
I love that. I love that.
I do too. I think it's the greatest test.
All right. So thank you so much for this information. And before I let you go, I have 4 questions I ask all of my guests, especially when they're moms.
Okay.
So the first question is, the show is all about inspiring moms to thrive as women and mothers. And I like to call it being a goddess in your life. And I'm curious to know, how are you being a goddess in your own life? How do you take care of yourself, your soul, your body? What are some of your non-negotiables?
Oh, let's see.
I love that side.
Non-negotiables. Isn't everything a negotiation when you have kids?
Yes, everything.
my non-negotiables are my husband and I bought ourselves a Peloton, because it really got to be too crazy to be able to get to the yoga studio or the gym. And I noticed that it was so easy for me to forego my workouts because of children's activities. So we made the investment in the Peloton. It sits in my home office. And one of my non-negotiables is I will get on that Peloton at least 5 times a week without fail. So that's one way. My other non-negotiable is my husband and I always make time to spend with each other whether it's going to a concert, going out to dinner, going to a movie where it's just the two of us. That's a non-negotiable as well, because we're a team, and the team can only function as good as you're interacting with each other. So keeping our relationship healthy just keeps everything healthy in our home.
I love that. What advice does your now mommy self would have given to your pre-mommy self? Just one?
Save a lot more money than you think you need to for college.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting. How old are your kids?
They range in age from 11 to 23.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so I like to keep it real and show listeners that even though someone is an expert in one area, they might be struggling with other things. So what are some of your current challenges as a woman, wife, or mother?
Oh, it's always a balancing act. I mean, I constantly feel like there's something in my life that never gets 100% of me. And I think that whether you're a mom and you stay home and your job is raising your children, whether your kids are out of the house and you're a mom and you're working, but you're still trying to raise kids when they're home from school, whatever your balance is, it's a constant struggle. It's a constant balance. And so I always feel bad if at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I had all the energy that my children needed with their homework. Or I feel bad if at the end of the day, I didn't complete the work assignment as well as I think I could have. You always feel like something doesn't get the best of you. And so the biggest challenge for me is just trying to remind yourself that nobody's perfect. As long as everybody is fed and healthy and alive and well and thriving, you're doing something right. And as long as you're not getting fired, you're doing something right, So I think we've got to give ourselves a break, because if you don't, you just feel inadequate 24/7.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you for that. All right, so any last advice for new moms?
Oh, this too shall pass. I think that is probably the best advice, and it will last you your entire rest of your life, no matter what age your kids are. So obviously the new moms, you don't know what you're doing. They don't come home with instruction booklets. Everybody's got advice for you, and everyone's advice is different, and you feel overwhelmed and you feel underprepared, and on top of it, you're sleep deprived, and on top of it, your hormones are having literally an internal war, and you just feel like you're going crazy. Mm-hmm. But our babies survive and thrive despite all of that. And then it passes, and then you get into the toddler phase, and now you're dealing with the behavior and correcting behavior, and is timeout best, or is reward system best, or is a point system best, and everyone has their opinion on that. And now you feel like, oh, I'm inadequate again, but then you get through it and your kids behave well when they get to school. And then you get the school challenges, and then you get the social media challenges, and then you get the college challenges. I mean, it just never ends, right? I mean, that's parenthood, but no matter how bad you're feeling in the moment, it will pass. And then the next hurdle you have as a mom, it's also going to pass. And before you know it, all these years have gone by, and you've got people telling you, your children are really amazing people. And I think that is probably the best thing to hear, right? Everyone thinks, oh, I want to raise a great athlete, or I want to raise a straight A student, or I want to raise this or that, or the next president. But really, at the end of the day, if you raise good human beings, it's so worth it. And all those passes and all those phases of just feeling like you're barely keeping your head above water are totally worth it. You'll get through it. And at the end of the day, and at the end of, all of these struggles, your kids are going to be awesome.
Yeah. And I'm getting emotional here because I totally agree with that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. So before I let you go, can you tell everybody where can people connect with you or the company? What's the website? Maybe you can talk about the social media profiles.
Sure, absolutely. So www.everlywell.com is our website. On that website, you can actually order tests. You can connect with customer service. Customer service can connect you directly to me. Once you've actually ordered one of our tests and you want to become part of our Facebook community, you can actually search EverlyWell on Facebook. It's you have to request permission to be added. We actually match up every person to make sure that they're an EverlyWell customer, so that people have the same reason for wanting to be part of that group. I will say that if people want to learn more about our company, they can tune in on Thursday, November 26th to Shark Tank, and they can learn more about EverlyWell on Shark Tank.
Love that. Thank you so, so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the information. Thank you for the education. Thank you so much for birthing 6 kids into the world. And
well, I birthed 3, but 3 came with my husband, and,
okay.
and they're my babies. So.
Then, of course, then raising 3 kids, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter, does it?
Raising 6 children, 6 human beings. I think this is the hardest work there is.
I would not disagree with that statement. Yeah. Not at all. Yeah. I agree. It is the hardest job you will ever love.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.